Hello, everybody. My name is Avi Haimowitz, and I am the Director of Development with Deaf Organization Fund. We abbreviate it DOF. So, for visual description, just so you know, I'm going to give my own visual description and I will be describing each one of the slides. I'm a white woman with brown mid-length hair and glasses on. In the background, I have a shelf full of colorful books and colorful artwork. On the slide that is currently on the screen, there is text on the right that says collective care for our deaf communities, winter impact call. And then on the left, you'll see a photo of people in an outdoor covered space, and there are flags hanging that are multicolored. And this is actually one of our meet and greet events that we hosted in Los Angeles, California earlier this year. We will not be discussing the 2025 grant impact results today, and we're also not going to be talking about how it is that you can apply for our next grant during this call. We'll actually be sending a link in the chat, though, that is to our grant seekers page that has more information about our grant programs and expectations. We are planning and expecting to open that up in fall of 2025. On the slide, we have a DOF logo on the left side with two hands signing the ASL sign for community. And below that is our name, Deaf Organization Fund. On there is our mission, which maybe you all might not be familiar with. I feel like this is a good opportunity to make sure you all know what it is that we do. We strengthen organizations working with deaf communities. And then our vision is a future in which deaf communities have access to a wide array of services provided by thriving and well-resourced organizations. Meet DOF. This slide has several headshots. At the top is the DOF team, my team, and at the bottom is a board member. There are 3 people who work for DOF currently. Sasha Panapa is our executive director, myself, the director of development, and Dan Mavishov. He's our project manager. So the 3 of us work for Deaf Organization Fund. Now, Communication Service for the Deaf, CSD, is our parent organization, and they fiscally sponsor us, and so they sit on our DOF board. And our board members are Marilyn Smith, Brendan Grammer, Chris Sukup, Maria Wilson, and Thomas Means. We have wonderful board members. On this slide, I'm going to give the image description first. On the right-hand side, we have a photo from a different meet and greet that we did in DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And you can actually see the back of Sasha's head as she's presenting to a group of people all sitting outside. There are string lights up above us. And my team today, we were really thinking about what updates do we want to share with all of you who joined today. And we realized that the reason why we set this up in the first place is to get at systemic inequities. And we have to recognize that the current political climate that we're in today, a month ago, our country had an election, and that election was contentious, and the results left a lot of us, especially the deaf community and the organizations that serve them, a bit unsure about our future and what's going to happen with some basic human rights. So What's happening now is just reaffirms our commitment to strengthen deaf organizations. Because when these organizations are strong, the deaf community benefits the most who are getting those services. And essentially, that means all of us have the responsibility to come together and care for our community. Through your registration today for this call, many of you expressed deep concerns about what's coming down the line, how it is that your organization is going to be impacted and you impacted. So we always want you to stay on top of your local, state, and national resources and as much as you can. My team with DOF, we always want to be a reputable source, almost like the ACLU, the Civil Liberties Union, the Chronicle of Philanthropy, and Nonprofit AF. So these are the resources that we often look to as far as what's happening in the country. And now more than ever, it is important to build relationships with other organizations with the intention of information sharing and collaboration. I'll touch more on that topic later on in the call. But today I want to focus on how DOF plans on showing up for our community through participatory grant making. And then new and continued resources for deaf organization leaders and more. And then we're also going to talk about how we as a community can collectively continue this work going forward. On this slide, at the top, it says participatory grant making. And on this slide, we have two icons. On the left, you see a group of people all with their hands connected together and arrows connecting, going one way and the other way, connecting to a group of people at a table holding hands. And basically saying that we should put communities ahead. Traditional fundraisers usually put decision makers ahead and make them have the authority and power. But we really feel like you should put the community first because that's who is most impacted by these funding decisions. Therefore, that should help shape our investment priorities and what it is that we spend money on. So the communities affected by our grants should be first. And how we put that in action is our grant review committee. We abbreviate that GRC. We always have members of the deaf community as part of that committee. And then we have people who have some degree of nonprofit experience. In 2023, we actually started our participatory grant making approach, and that was our first ever grant review committee. We decided to test it and see how it would go, and it went really well. So for 2024, for the 2025 grant, we opened this up in fall to the community and asked them to submit their applications. And we had a lot of interest. And then we screened from there and came up with a committee. Now, our GRC committee is currently reviewing the 2025 grant impact grant submissions. So we also use a concept called trust-based philanthropy. That just basically means that the funds are unrestricted and the organization gets to decide how they use these funds. It's not up to us to decide that the organization needs to spend this money specifically on organizational cost or operational cost or a certain project. We feel like you know better than we do. So we leave that decision up to you. On this slide is the 2024 Impact Grant cohort. And then on the right-hand side, it's blue. It's a video that's going to be played a little bit later. And on the left-hand side, we have a list of all of the organizations who are in our cohort. I will show those momentarily, but I wanted to take a minute to celebrate our 2024 cohort and share a little bit more with you about their work. So they're listed in ABC order. The first is Atomic Hands. They're a national organization who is working to advance accessible information about science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, for the deaf community. Its members, deaf community and its members through ASL, storybooks, mini courses. And these materials help STEM professionals and educators and students. Next is Deaf Equity. They're based in Minnesota. They are hosting a year-long series of community-based workshops for deaf community members on a range of topics, including Asian American culture and deaf-blind immersion, and more. Next is Deaf Inc. They're based in Missouri, and they're working hard to make information about cancer accessible in ASL via educational videos. The videos support deaf individuals and their families as they're navigating coping with their life with cancer. Next is Deaf Spotlight, based in Washington. They focus on deaf art and creatives in the Pacific Northwest, as well as across the country. They hired a staff member to oversee the organization's operations. Next is Heard. They are national and they support deaf and disabled people who are currently or formerly experiencing incarceration. They hired somebody to conduct outreach and disseminate much needed survey about experiences with incarceration. And next is Off the Grid Missions. They're a national organization as well that provides emergency, global response, and relief to deaf communities experiencing disaster. They have expanded their efforts to 4 countries. They've conducted data collection and distributed food and medical relief in Haiti. And now I'm going to play this video.
All right. So those are our 2024 cohort winners. So now let's talk about the 2025 Impact Grant. That's what this slide says right at the top, and it also has 2 icons. On the left, it's a pencil on a paper, and on the right, it's a cascade of arrows pointing downwards and outwards. For those of you who may have arrived a little bit later in today's call, we will be announcing the 2025 grantee organizations next month in January. We received an incredible record-breaking amount of 84 requests for funding last fall. For context, last year, we received 66 applications. And at that time, we thought 66 was a large number. And that was the highest that we had ever received. And now we've received even more. So we continue to grow year over year, and the demand is growing. And more organizations are learning about DOF and the accessible nature of these resources for them. Last fall, requests totaled about 1.9 million, so almost 2 million in requests from 84 different deaf serving organizations. Now we can contrast the amount that was requested through the amount that we're able to distribute through fundraising efforts, which is about $100,000 annually to 4 to 6 different deaf organizations and programs. And so there's a big gap between what was requested and what we can supply. However, we continue to work to fundraise and continue to encourage the community to support our work. And we will continue to keep pushing and advocating for DOF to become one of multiple accessible funding sources in the philanthropic sector. Meaning that we cannot be the only accessible fund. We cannot be the only accessible funder. So we want other funders to consider deaf folks' needs as well. This slide is also talking about the 2025 Impact Grant. And this is some of the feedback that we got from those 84 applicants. I'll do a quick description of the slide. It says applicant feedback at the top, and then there's 2 columns of text that list different training topics. And then there's a data bar with some data about a virtual nonprofit hub showing that 65 of applicants said they are in support of this. Yes, 34% said they were curious about it, and 1% said no, they weren't interested. And you might be wondering, what is this? So we always include optional questions on our applications that organizations can choose to answer or leave blank. This past fall, one of the questions we asked these applicants was, what training and resources are you most eager to receive from us? And so it lists out the top training topics that were requested across these different organizations. I'll go ahead and sign what is on the slide: leadership and management, nonprofit finance, grant writing, diversity, equity, and inclusion, development strategies, accessibility, board governance, fundraising, strategic planning and strategic impact, and networking. And we know that networking is not necessarily a topic that we can provide training on, but many organizations said they need and want networking in this question box, which means that there's a need for these organizations to network with each other. One of the other questions we asked on the application, designed as a yes, no, or interested to learn more type of question, was, are you interested in being a part of a virtual nonprofit hub? So this would be a space online where nonprofits can share resources, ask each other questions, collaborate on projects, and so on and so forth. 65% of those who answered said yes, 34% said they'd like to know more, and 1 organization said no. And this data, in addition to the training topics, in addition to the need for networking, it really showed that here at DOF, we need to prioritize this type of space for deaf-centered organizations and programs. And so we are working towards the goal of establishing this virtual space by the end of 2025 with your support. And now I would love to get a little bit more of your input on this, especially if you're affiliated in any way with a deaf-centered nonprofit organization. So my team is going to set up a poll for us that is going to ask you what type of training topics you think that we should set up for 2025. You'll see that it's the same as what you see on the slide, but go ahead and check as many boxes as you'd like. You're not limited to just one, so check what topics you'd like to see us provide trainings on. Checking in if you all are done. It looks like 50% have submitted their answer. I'll give a couple minutes. Well, moments. All right, let's see the results. All right, we will show the results. And I'll go ahead and sign the results to make sure that everyone can see and that's accessible. 53% said they feel strongly they would like more training on leadership and management. Oh, excuse me. We'll start with the highest. So 59% said grant writing. 53% chose leadership and management. 53% chose development strategies. 56% said nonprofit finance. Oh, 66. I'm sorry, I must have overlooked this. 66% picked fundraising. Wow, that's awesome. So that is our top topic. Then we have fundraising, grant writing, leadership and management, development strategies, and then it looks like the rest are kind of in that 20 to 30% range: board governance, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and accessibility. Well, we have some clear priorities. Everybody's thinking about money, right? Money is important to you, and also leadership, nonprofit governance, board governance. This is really important feedback for us, and my team will certainly take note of this as we plan out our programming for 2025. So thank you all for your feedback on that. So this slide says supporting grantees. On this slide, there's 3 photos, kind of like a collage. So 2 of my team members, Sasha and Dan, are in these photos with a few of our grantees. So some of the folks that work for those organizations. On the top left is Sasha with Barbara Speaker. And Barbara is from Atomic Hands. On the bottom left, we have Sasha with Delinda Bright and Sarah Pretchel of Deaf Inc. in Missouri. And then on the right hand, we have Sasha and Dan with Leanne Tang of Asian Ciders, which is a national organization. Whenever we can make that connection with our grantees face to face, we love to do it because it gives us a rare opportunity to build stronger relationships. And you might be wondering, how are we getting these in-person meetings? How are we building these relationships? And you'll see a little bit about it in the next slide, but sometimes it's flying to conferences, supporting community-led fundraising events, hosting meet and greets. Whenever we're in a city that we know a grantee organization is based in that city, we always reach out and ask if they're interested in connecting. At its heart, we're not simply providing these organizations with funds. It's not all about money. We also want to provide these organizations with coaching, and that happens through email exchanges, Zoom meetings, or sometimes in these in-person connection moments. Just at those magical moments where you're in the right place and the right time. There are some grantees that ask to meet with us on a regular cadence, monthly or quarterly. Other grantees, we maybe only see them once or twice a year. And so what's important is that the grantees lead the way, not us. So as a grantee, they decide what this looks like and how often we meet. We're not trying to add any additional burden to these organizations because they're doing the frontline work and we're here to support in the background. In addition, when we can, we also offer, and this is not something that we guarantee every year, but we do try to offer professional development stipends that provides grantees with options to attend trainings, to attend conferences, or take advantage of other professional development opportunities that are important to them. And this is a way to support their continued learning and growth so that they can, in turn, better support their community and their organization as well. So this slide says Deaf Organizations and Programs Directory, and there is an image of a smartphone on the screen. And I'm actually going to click that. It's going to play a video in a little bit and give you an idea of what our directory looks like when you swipe through it on your phone. Now this will only show the first few portions, how to submit your organization's information, how to filter for results, how you can contact us, and it'll just show a few organizations that are currently listed on the directory. So we launched our directory earlier this year, and it has really had a multiple benefits for us. So this is a wonderful way for folks to find potential partners on projects, partners to train together, to collaborate with, or to write grant applications together. So this is a great way for deaf-centered organizations to find each other. In addition, sometimes funders will reach out to us, for example, and they'll say, um, or a state or community-based foundation will reach out to me and say, what deaf organization is in my area? Or what deaf organization is working on these causes? So now you can actually use this directory to find potential grantees or partners by geographic location or also by cause, so the area that that organization focuses on. We now have over 70 organizations and we are still growing on our directory. So if you're watching this and you work or volunteer for a deaf-centered organization or program, please familiarize yourself with this directory and make sure that your organization is listed on it as well. So we'll go ahead and give you a quick sneak peek. I'll play the video now.
If you're interested in seeing more, we're going to be posting a link in the chat to the directory so you can scope it out later. So phase 2 of that directory is going to have a list of nonprofit consultants who are deaf or fluent in ASL. Reason being, organizations often need services. Let's say they're looking for a grant writer or they need somebody who is an expert in strategic planning, etc. Having the directory with a list of those people who do that type of service would be very beneficial, we feel like. So we're going to be launching the consulting phase 2 come spring. So definitely looking forward to that. So what sustains all of this? On this slide, we have two photos that appear as an example of actions of how to sustain DOF's work. On the upper, there are two people running, and one of them is wearing a Dash for Deaf Organizations t-shirt. That's our virtual walk run event that's held in the springtime. And then on the bottom, we have people who are chatting in somebody's home. And that's a fundraising house party held by somebody in DOF's honor. Oftentimes people are curious as to how DOF manages to run, where these costs, where the money comes from, and this is a really great question. We have an endowment, which is a huge part of what makes the grant program possible. But so are other donors and donations like you all from the community. The virtual walk run event, like I mentioned, corporate sponsorships and gifts, companies that decide to sponsor events like the Dash, or companies that make a direct donation to us. We're also always working on relationship building with other funders in hopes that we receive funding from them to be able to pool our funds and resources together and help us make their grant programs accessible. So, as I mentioned, sometimes people offer to host fundraisers for us in their home or via social media, birthday parties, holidays, things like that. And then last but not least, as I mentioned earlier today, our parent organization, CSD, provides DOF with physical sponsorship towards our operating cost. And that is what sustains our work. On the screen says collectivity contributing. And there are two equal sized gift boxes and icons adding up to a equal a larger gift box icon. In case some of you didn't know, it's all over social media and email today. Today is special, not just because we're having our second ever impact call, but also because it's Giving Tuesday. It is a global day of donation and it's huge in our community. And we do want to share that Watkins Insurance Group has agreed to match all donations to DOF up to $2,500 by the end of this month, which is a great way to put collective care into action. A match like this means if you donate $100, Watkins will donate another $100. So essentially, you just made a $200 gift right there. If you donate $25, Watkins will double that and make it $50. If you donate 10, Watkins will match it, making it be 20. So all of the gifts via our website or social media, meaning Instagram or Facebook. Also, you can send a check in the mail. All of these will count towards that match. There is a QR code on the bottom left of the slide, and that takes you to our donation form from our website. And my team's actually going to be also posting a link in the chat for you to get to that page if you'd like. But also Instagram and Facebook are other places that you can donate to us. Hoping that we get to at least $5,000 by the end of the month. Because if you, the community, gives $2,500 and Watkins gives $2,500, that makes it so that we are at a possible $5,000. And that helps us make more resources for deaf-centered nonprofits. And it will make a difference by collective contributing, and it makes a difference for our deaf community. Okay, we do have time now for questions and answers. There are two options. First, you can use the raise hand feature. You click on the actual icon raise hand if you have a question, if you'd like to turn on your camera and ask the question. There is also, you can ask, if you click the question mark for the Q&A and type in your question. If you would like to have your question be on camera, know that it takes a couple, like a minute for us to upgrade you to be host. You're not going to be able to click on your camera icon and have it work immediately, but we really do want you to be able to sign your questions to us. And then we'll make sure that we understood your question, and then you can turn your video off and we will respond. So our team is working diligently to catch all of your questions. Please be patient with me. I'm going to try my best to answer as many questions as I can before we wrap. I see somebody said making a donation to DOF will not influence the choice of 2025 grant winner, correct? Yes, that is absolutely correct. Anybody who decides to make a donation to Deaf Organization Fund, whether you represent the community or you work for a deaf-centered program or you have applied into our recent grant, that has no bearing, that has no impact on the results. The grant review committee is a completely separate committee from seeing who has donated to DOF. So I appreciate you asking that question. We have somebody who raised their hand. So Patrick, we're going to go ahead and promote you now, and then you can turn your camera on and ask the question. Just 1 second here. There we go. Yes, perfect. I see you. Hi, Patrick.
Hi
What's your
there.
question? You're freezing.
I'm the founder of a small organization called break the curve. We sponsor independent living for deaf individuals. And my question is there an opportunity for you to interview some of the folks that are grantees
Let
with you
me
in some sort of panel?
Sure. Let me make sure that I understand the question. So you have an organization that's focused on independent living, and you wonder if we would ever set up an interview with people who are applying for our grants with the people who are deciding on the grants. Is that your question?
Yeah, the people who are served.
Okay, great. You can turn off your camera now and I will answer your question. So Patrick wants to know if DOF would ever consider interviewing organizations who apply for grants in the future and including those people who receive services from those organizations. That's actually a great concept that we haven't incorporated in any of our previous grant applications, but that is something that my team will definitely make note of as a good idea, as suggestion for the future, whether it be through the grant application or maybe when your organization receives the funds as part of the intermittent and final report, we can get some comments from individuals served by your organization. That's great. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to the Q&A, and it says, could DOF share any existing networking opportunities for fundraisers from the deaf community? I'm not sure there are any beyond typical social media fundraising. You know, Instagram and Facebook are great ways to get your organization's name out there with the deaf community, but actually networking through that, I'm not sure. Some organizations definitely do partner together on fundraising events. For example, if your organization wanted to host your own fun run 5K kind of thing, you could partner with other organizations, be they deaf or hearing, in the area and then agree to split the proceeds. That would be one way of networking through fundraising. Other than that, I'm not sure what kind. I mean, there are galas and there are auctions and bake-offs and things like that that you could consider partnering with other organizations on that way. Okay, I have somebody else who has raised their hand. I believe it was Risha. We're going to be promoting you to a panelist so that you can turn your video on. Hi,
Hi. So thank you for this session.
you're fine. Should say my ASL's only.
My name is Drucia, and I am the owner of Taptic, Taptic. And essentially, this is an alert system for your phone so that if there's a ringing or an alarm, your phone will also flash. So if there's a baby or some sort of organization or some sort of alarm going off, it will alert you. We are a for-profit company, not a nonprofit, but we are looking for accessible grants. Is that something DOF can do?
I'm going to repeat your question just to make sure that I understand it completely, and then you can turn off your camera and I'll answer. So, you founded a company that focuses on making sure that deaf and hard of hearing individuals have access to any auditory sounds like fire alarms, baby crying, something like that. And they'll get a light up or vibration on their phone, and you're looking for grants for your company. Did I understand your question correctly?
Yes, that's right. And I'm specifically looking for uh, grants for deaf-centered organizations. So this might be the perfect organization to help with, promotion and things like that. But I'm looking at the private sector, not interested in having the government involved.
I see. I see. Okay, understood. You can turn your video off now and I'll go ahead and answer your question. Okay, so she is the founder of a company, Taptic, and it is an alert notification on your phone for emergency sounds for, you know, deaf and hard of hearing. And she's looking to see if there are accessible grants and deaf specific grants. She doesn't want it to be government grants. Um, yes, except for DOF focuses on 501c3 exempt charitable organizations or um, any organization that has a fiscal sponsor, meaning that sponsor is a 501c3 exempt organization. Those are the organizations who can apply for a grant with DOF. I know that there are other resources out there. For example, some parent organizations like CSD have other programs. CSD has a program called the Social Venture Fund, SVF, and SVF has some accessible resources for deaf and hard of hearing business owners. You might want to check them out. I do know that you mentioned that you didn't want to be involved with government grants necessarily. Um, but SBA, the Small Business Administration, does have grants for small business owners who have a certain certification, be it like minority owned or disability owned. You might want to check that out also if you hadn't. Okay, I see somebody commented that they did skip.com. Okay, thank you for that, Patrick. Do we have any other questions from the audience that I can answer? I'll give everybody a moment to think about that before we wrap.
Thank you, everyone, so much for your questions. And thank you so much for joining us today. This slide, I'll describe it. It has a selfie-style team photo of Dan, Sasha in the middle, and then me, all standing with our arms around each other, wearing the same teal shirt that has the words "Strong Organizations, Strong Communities." Please feel free to reach out to us. Reach out to us through email anytime. We are more than happy to set up some time to Zoom as well, if you prefer to do that so-called face-to-face interaction. Also, follow us on social media if you don't already. And when you close out this Zoom, you'll see a pop-up for a survey, a 23-question survey. And please take your time to answer that. It will really help us with future impact calls. We'll also send it out through email tomorrow if you don't have time to fill it out today. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your support. And we wish you all a safe and peaceful end to your 2024. Have a wonderful holiday season. Thanks for coming.